The words and concepts we will be discussing this week are fairly subtle in nature and may or may not be on the front burner when you start thinking about research. But I think that both concepts are well worth introducing and getting everybody on the same page in thinking about research. In 1962, when Thomas Kuhn first associated the word paradigm with his conceptualization of the process of change in scientific thinking, there has been an enormous and ongoing debate on the topic. At one time, and it may still well be true, Kuhn was the single most cited author in the citation indexes produced by the Institute for Scientific Information. Certainly generations of PhD students and no few master's students have read his book and debated the contents thereof at some length. You will get my take on paradigms in the textual part of this week's material. Paradigms, in the strict Kuhnian sense, are at least fairly easy to understand, particularly in the hard sciences. The differences between an Earth with a solid crust and an Earth with a crust composed of giant floating tectonic plates is a fairly easy distinction to get across. With the notion of cultural hegemony, advanced by Antonio Gramsci, we get into a rather more murky area. The idea is not easily understood, mainly because it calls into question the nature of some of our basic assumptions about life, the universe, and everything. If your basic assumption is, this is the way the world is, it is very hard to frame research questions or conduct research that run counter to those basic assumptions. I will push this notion a little harder in the lecture this week. The American reluctance to deal with issues of social class is an example of this particular hegemony at work. The idea of cultural hegemony has been tremendously powerful in the social sciences, or at least in some of the more theoretically inclined practitioners thereof. Since Gramsci's writings started getting translated and published in the 1970s, the literature dealing with hegemony is a good deal more diffuse and not as easily identified as the Kuhnian stream. The Gramsci literature is often secondary or tertiary in nature, and is not discussing Gramsci directly, but using his early explicators as the starting point. We are at the stage where the term and the concept are discussed with no reference to Gramsci at all. We're not going to delve deeply into questions of paradigms or hegemony in this class. Quantitative methods for research is at too low a level to require attention be paid to overarching conceptions about the way we look at the world. I do think that somewhere along the line, particularly as you start approaching dissertation topics, you're going to have to give some thought to the issues raised here. Keep this in mind as you progress through your doctoral program.